Hello everyone, welcome to another Footmarks episode. I'm Varun and I'm joined by Jarrod as always. So today's episode of Footmarks is on, I guess, the missed opportunities. And I assume this is Test cricket. I don't know if we're doing all of cricket, but it's
We're doing Test cricket.
we're doing Test cricket, right? So it's like, so I guess it would be easier for us to just explain what we mean. I think once we start talking about it. So Jared, I think of all the topics we talk about this video, I think there's only one you've actually done a proper piece on, and that's India on ranked turners. The reason I wanted to start with this is because I think with everything else in this video, what's done is done. This is technically something that could still apply in the future. So your theory with India was that on ranked turners, India rarely used their second seamer, so you could make an argument they could only have gone in with three spinners. I think that's maybe slightly wrong, but I do think you're onto something where it's like, if you're barely using your second seamer, could you not bring in another spin bowling all-rounder for him? Or just bring another specialist batter, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where it came from. Of they weren't using like the whole point of a cricket team is to use all the different parts for as much as you need them for, right? So that they all push towards a win. And in Asia, there are many different times when the second seamer is not doing anything, right? And it's not just India. You can make that claim in Sri Lanka and other countries as well. And it's like, why do we have two seam bowlers if most teams are going to open the bowling with a spinner anyway? It doesn't make sense. It would be different if the combined total of those seam bowlers was like 45 overs a game. Then you'd be like, well, that's too many. Then we need to bring it down. But in some of those matches, it's like the combined total of the seamers is like 25 overs. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have a second bowler there unless they're so different. Like, let's say one was a new ball specialist and one's an old ball specialist. Then you're like, okay, we need two. But in India's case, they got Bumrah, right? So they didn't need the secondary bowler at all. So I think it's definitely, the way that I look at this is there is the conventions of cricket sometimes stop teams from using what they have to maximize their talent.
Yeah, definitely. I think you were talking about like, let's say having different skills. I think India, you did this piece during the BGT in 23. At that point, you also had Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav, and all of even including Bumrah, they all like the old ball.
Yeah.
So if you're playing two of them, they contradict each other, right? It's like they're going up against each other. I think it's also partly why sometimes Siraj's numbers don't look as good in India with Bumrah, because it's like if the ball is reversing, India just give the ball to Bumrah, right? So I also, just to be clear, like if the pitches are obviously like what we saw versus West Indies recently or versus England last year, absolutely play two seamers. But there were some of those pitches where I think India's percentage of seam bowled was like less than 15%. It's like, what are you doing playing the second seamer? And that's also at the same point where India's batting was hella fragile, Jared. They were constantly like 120 for 5 and 6 for 6 in that era, and depended on the Jadeja, Akshar, and Ashwin trio to bail them out, right? It wasn't like, I'm pretty sure, like, I think Akshar Patel was the best batter in that 2023 BGT, right? He was batting out, what, 9 in that series?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to do that, right, why not just pick the extra batter? And I think that's where this conversation sort of started from, of, are there sort of historical precedents where teams have a particular kind of talent pool or particular kind of pitches where you should be playing the game very, very differently than everywhere else, right? Like, I think isn't it Gaul where teams still take two spinners in at Gaul, like, very regularly? And it's like, well, I think in domestic cricket, it's like something like 75% of the overs are bowled by spin. What do you think the second seam is going to do, guys? Like, what's your thinking here? So in that, you also need little things like you need a spinner who's good at bowling with a new ball and everything else. But India had all those bases covered, and they have a player in their 11 that isn't doing much. Now, the argument could be that if you have only one seamer in and he gets injured, that causes a big option. But teams go into games with one spinner all the time, right? Like, I don't know if that really backs up what we're talking about. But again, if the seamer isn't doing much, what is that? Even if you have no seamers in your side, does it matter all that much? So I just think that teams are not maximizing the way that they can win games because everyone is sort of locked into the way that cricket should be played rather than a better system for something like this.
Yeah, the opposite of what we were talking about is Australia and the BGT in Australia, right? It's like they kept picking Lyon in all 5 test matches where it's like he did nothing for most of it. So they're like, maybe MCG was, I think, the closest where I'm like, okay, there is some value in bowling spin, right?
I think we looked this up. I think I did a piece for the Cricketer. I was like, Lyon's not bowling, right? So What do you think you're getting out of Nathan Lyon at this stage that you wouldn't get out of Bo Webster's off spin, right? Like, I'm not saying that Bo Webster's anywhere near as good as Lyon, but if Lyon's not bowling, you might as well just say to Bo Webster, can you bowl 20 overs a spin again? And just hold up an end, and all the quicks will take the wickets at the other end. So it's a perfect example, again, of just not using your talent correctly and not understanding the best way to maximize your chances of winning games.
Yeah, so I think this is like still, and I think it's still important we talk about this now because India might still have ranked turners in the future. Like even though they might not want to do it, it might not be like a team whole wide directive. But
hey,
we've
the
seen
conversation
cases,
might be it might be Pakistan, right? If Pakistan are going to do the wickets that they've got, it might make sense for Pakistan to have this conversation, right? Rather than India or Sri Lanka, right? Like it doesn't matter who the team is. It depends on your pitches and your talent.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so with India, let's say like even if BCCI is like, cool, we want sporting pitches. Like, do you remember the indoor pitch in 2023, Jarrod? The absolute shithole, right? So what I believe what happens was that test match was supposed to happen somewhere else, and they moved it last minute to indoor. And I believe the directors make it spin friendly, and the groundsman didn't have a lot of time. So in an attempt to make it spin friendly, it became a nuclear wasteland. So I think we've seen with both the men's World Cup and the women's World Cup, the BCCI useless at organizing games. So I can 100% imagine a situation in the future where a test match might be moved last minute and India face a ranked turner without actually wanting to face it. So if that does occur, so let's say in this current lineup, let's say we don't have Ashwin anymore. Could India go with, I don't know, let's say, I'll just make a top 7, right? You have KL, Jaiswal, Sai, Gill. Let's say Pant, you have Jurel at 6, Sarfraz 7, Jadeja, who I'm forgetting, Washington, and Akshar and Kuldeep, or like Kuldeep and Bumrah, something along those lines. You're still getting a lot of batting. And if you are going to be on a ranked turner, you don't really need that 5th bowling option.
No, and I think this is the really interesting thing, actually, that the world is kind of obsessed by all-rounders and how they change your team. But no one ever uses them in this kind of way, which is, it's very hard to have a team where you have 5 bowling options in Asia and you use them because spinners bowl so much of the overs, and Ashwin can bowl 55 to 60 overs, right? Jadeja can bowl 55 to 60 overs. Harath can bowl 55 to 60 overs. How are you fitting in the 5th bowler? Do you remember there was a guy, India used a guy, and you'll remember his name. Is it, I want to say Jitesh Sharma, but is that right?
Jayant Yadav?
Jayant Yadav, that's who I mean.
The Shahbaz Nadeem.
I knew it started with a J. But they used him, and my memory of it was they didn't know how to bowl him because how did they get him on? And there was early games in when Washi played, and Ashwin had one. Anytime you needed a tall off spinner, they had a tall off spinner. So why would they need a second one?
Whereas, from memory, like Jayant Yadav and Washington Sundar were basically specialist batters at like 8 in the games they played.
And so it's different if you have Kuldeep, Akshar and Washi, because those are 3 different spinners. So there is different tactical reasons to use all 3 of them, right? Or take out Akshar and put Ravi Jadeja in there, sorry. But whatever angle you want. But there have been times when Akshar has played with Jadeja when it's like, how do we even bowl both of these guys? Because they both need the same end at the same time against the same kind of batters, right? And so realistically, again, it's like, well, if that's the case and you know it, can you not? I think I said in one of those pieces that India could have gone in with 3 specialist bowlers, right? They had the ability, if they wanted to go in with Ashwin, Jadeja, and Bumrah, and not even need another bowler, right? That's it. You're done, right? Ashwin and Jadeja are just going to bowl non-stop from one end, right? And then Bumrah will come on occasionally when they think the ball will reverse or with the new ball, right? And that's it. Job done. Now, the argument against that is injury. And I think I made it in that piece. But then you could say that why do you ever need 5 bowling options in Asia? 4 bowling options is the absolute most you ever need in Asian conditions because the spinners bowl 50 to 55 overs each, right? Like, you know, that's so much of the game. The game's almost done once you do that. So I think that's something that's really worth thinking about in the future, and maybe it changes the way that we think about how team selections are done for Asia.
Yeah, so the other thing you were suggesting was if you do want a second seamer, I think at that point you suggested Hardik. But so now if the India wants second seamer, they could play Nitish as a second seamer, but I don't think they trust his bowling yet, right?
And then you just have him as a backup in the side, right? And he, you know, he bats wherever he needs to bat, and you can do that. And then you've got the batting further down. I think that again is a perfectly acceptable way of doing it. So I do think that we can, and I've seen this with first class cricket before. First class cricket's a lot more risky with its selections. You see teams in first class cricket that are sometimes a little bit, you know, out there, and I think you can get away with those sorts of things in first class cricket, whereas in Test cricket, everyone's like, I can't believe they picked this side. So I think you can go about this. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, that what teams in history have had the flexibility to be able to do random different kinds of selections based on their team.
Yeah, so I think we talked about, let's say, India maybe reducing the fifth bowler to having 4 bowlers. Let's do the opposite now, right? From 1990 to 2007-ish, Australia had barely played the fifth bowler, right? Because... And this is one of the things that really annoyed you. I think that's this specific topic is what triggered this whole conversation. Is if you have Adam Gilchrist, why did you not bat him at 6 and play like an Ian Harvey at 7?
Yeah,
right. That's where this whole thing started. Could they not become an even better team, or did they even need it?
Yeah, I think just to go through Ian Harvey's record. So he's known as a white ball cricketer, right? And Ian Harvey in first class cricket averages 35 with the bat with 1500s, high score of 209. And with the ball, he took 425 wickets at 27.5, right? But Ian Harvey in Test cricket is probably less of a wicket taker and just an incredibly low economy type of guy, right? You also have Brendan Julian that you could have used in this role if you wanted something slightly different. Shane Lee, for a period of time, could have also done this role. There's a couple of other guys like Sean Young.
Shane Watson? Could they have used Shane Watson, or was he injured by then? Was he more injured?
So young Shane Watson... would have been a perfect example of someone who, again, could have batted at number 7. They bring him into the side, and he could have done it. Shane Watson would have probably taken over from Ian Harvey in this role. So you can argue that they didn't. It wasn't like they were keeping Keith Miller out the side, right? Because if someone was like Keith Miller, he would have come in. But Ian Harvey has proved with 8,000 first-class runs and 400 first-class wickets that he was an absolutely fine red ball player across 2 different countries. He's also a very smart player, and he is a very adaptable player. If he needed to bowl for economy, he would. If he needed to bowl for wickets, he would. And as a batter, he could hammer the ball. So you're still getting... I don't think Ian Harvey is like a worse batter than Ian Healy, right? Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, he's a way better batter than Ian Healy. And Ian Healy batted at number 7 during Ian Harvey's career, right? So if you change that side around and you go in with that, now you can use Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne in more attacking ways, whereas sometimes Australia use those as stock bowlers, right? You've got 2 of the greatest attacking bowlers in the history of the game being used as stock bowlers. Brett Lee and Sean Tate become a lot more dangerous in that kind of situation because now they can bowl 4 over spells just when you need them, right? And Jason Gillespie's body is falling apart. And Damien Fleming's body was falling apart. You had the ability to be able to use those guys without them bowling 35 overs in a game, right? Mm-hmm. Ian Harvey gives you such flexibility in that side. Now, I say all this as a guy who has a signed Ian Harvey shirt, and I was a big fan of this as a kid. But I'm coming back to this. As a kid, I was just like, he probably deserves a test match because of how good he is at first-class cricket. Now I'm looking at it going, why did they never move Gilchrist 1 position? Like, it doesn't even make any sense, right? Because it makes you such a more dynamic side. And why would you want Warner McGrath bowling that many overs when you've got a guy who would have gone at about 2.5 runs and over, right, in Test cricket? Like, I think his economy was slightly higher in first-class cricket, but he bowled a little bit more attacking. I don't have his economy for Victoria, but I've seen him bowl 20 over spells for like 30 runs a lot of times, where Victoria would just attack from the other end. And just be like, the game isn't going anywhere because Harvey is bowling. We're just going to attack from the other end. Australia could have done the same thing. And the weird thing is, right, this is what is stupid about this, Varun. They eventually do this after Ian Harvey and Adam Gilchrist have gone, and they bat Andrew McDonald. They bring Andrew McDonald into the side, who's a shitter version of Ian Harvey when they don't have Gilchrist anymore, right? So they eventually move to that thinking. Now, I think some of the reason that Australia doesn't do this, and let's work through this properly, is that in Warne and McGrath, you have 2 guys who love bowling, right? Long spells and everything else. So there is an element of you have 2 great strike bowlers who are also 2 great stock bowlers at the same time. But as I said, it's the other bowlers, I think, make it more interesting. that sort of, having to use Colin Miller with his medium pace sometimes when he was in the side. Whereas, like, if you have Ian Harvey, you don't need Colin Miller bowling medium pace for you, right? You've got that option available for you. It helps with Gillespie, it helps with Fleming, it helps with Lee, it helps with Tate. So I think it helps more with the other bowlers. So I can understand why they didn't do it. But I just think if you take out the number 6 batter in that situation and you have Ian Harvey at number 7, and as you said, then Shane Watson is number 7, I think that is a better side than the great Australian teams that we have seen, because it is more flexible and has more talent. And because there's so much Lanka, Hayden, Ponting. Martin, Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh,
Mike Hussey.
Pick your guys at the top order ahead of them. Why do you need someone averaging 50 at number 7?
I believe they played Andrew Simons for like 20 odd test matches for his bowling, I think.
Partly because he's bowling.
I think no one has rated Simons more than both of us in ODIs and T20s, but like, I don't think his bowling surely is like not good enough in Test cricket, right? I think if he was a better batter, like I think I'd love his bowling as a 6th bowling option, not as this 5th bowler, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at it, they had a lot of, if Steve Waugh was fit all the way through his career, I don't think you need Ian Harvey or Shane Watson in these sorts of positions that we're talking about, right? That team is really good, because I think both of us like Steve Waugh's early bowling career. Mm-hmm. He's a good 5th bowling option, I think.
Yeah, fair.
But specifically, you're right. In once he's not playing, so Simons takes a wicket a game at an average of 37, and I reckon he took I think they used him still as more of a 6th bowler, but in the 5th bowler position. Like, he didn't bowl a lot of deliverers. So all he's really doing, Simons, is probably taking over the Mark Waugh role of that sort of, when you need an extra bowler, you use Mark Waugh or you use Andrew Simons. They're both fine, but they're not what Ian Harvey is. Ian Harvey is probably 25 to 30 overs a game, if you want. Like, I'm trying to compare. Ian Harvey is, I think, a slightly better Colin de Grandhomme, right? With the ball, maybe not quite as good as Colin de Grandhomme with the bat. If you put Colin de Grandhomme in that Australian team, right, I just think you're a much better side. I just think you're instantly a much better side if you do that. So I think the Australian team could have been better if they'd done that. So I'm not just saying it from a flexibility point of view, but here's the question, Varun. We're saying they could be better. We could be wrong. But why wouldn't you use that flexibility when you could use it? Why just stop using it altogether?
I actually think they needed this 5th bowler. There's a few test matches where they miss one of Warner McGrath. So I think it's the Border Gavaskar Trophy in 2003, 2004 comes to mind. Horrible pitches, right?
Couldn't take any wickets.
You don't have the 2 best bowler. Let's say like Warren versus India wasn't as big a factor. I think it's fair enough to say, because they played him well. McGrath missing is quite good, and whatever reason, whoever the backup bowlers came in just couldn't come close to replicating what he did, right? And the other thing, so that's the one series I was thinking where I'm like, okay, they really needed the 5th bowler. There's also, I don't know if you remember, there's a series when New Zealand comes to Australia, they draw like 3 test matches, right?
Yeah, 2001, is it?
Yeah, 1 or 2002. The other one is where I think they needed the 5th bowler, is the 2005 Ashes, where McGrath was injured, Warren did everything on his own. Their 3rd and 4th bowlers, who regardless of who they played, were torn to pieces, right? That's when they desperately needed someone else in that team who could give them something. Because if you compare...
I reckon the issue there is that I reckon Ian Harvey's done by then. I reckon if that same thing happens in 2001, I think you're right, and Ian Harvey comes straight in, and I'm not sure that they felt confident enough with Shane Watson to do that role. But you're right. I think all 3 of those are perfect examples of times when they could have done it. But also, in Asia, they could have taken Ian Harvey as the 2nd seamer at times, right? And used some extra spinners. Now, you could argue that they didn't always have them, but there's a period of time where they have, I would argue, near peak Ian Harvey as a player, and they have Colin Miller, right? And if you put Colin Miller's bowling and Ian Harvey's bowling into a side, and Ian Harvey's batting, that gives them extra seam bowling and extra spin bowling in the same game, right? Without losing much with the bat again. So I think you're right. I think there are definite times when they could have made that decision. And Gilchrist didn't want to bat at number 6, right? But Gilchrist batted at number 5 domestically. This is not a guy who'd batted at number 7 his entire life. He didn't grow up batting at number 7, did he? He's Adam Gilchrist. He opened the batting in ODI cricket and he batted at number 5 domestically, right? So you're not talking about someone who'd only ever batted at number 7 and had flukish numbers. He's not Dennis Lindsay. No one else. Only Tim Wigmore and I are going to get that reference. But, this is someone who could have done that. So again, I think someone needed to have a conversation with Gilchrist and be like, you need to do this. Kumar Sangakkara, that's such a name drop, but he told me that he would take the gloves back up when it would help with the flexibility of Sri Lanka's team. Right now, he didn't want to wicket keep later on in his career, but he was like, if we needed an extra bowler in the side, all right, or needed to change the team, it makes more sense for me to take the gloves, and just on occasion, and we can change our lineup. And Australia, I can't think of a test match where Australia batted Gilchrist at number 6 for an entire test match. Outside of, I think there might be a test match where Sean Young plays. And that was because Sean Young wasn't supposed to be in that squad and he came in as a last minute replacement because there weren't many fit Australian players in the country, right? Like it was something like that, Varun. And maybe Gilchrist lined up at number 6 in the first innings in that game. But I can't think of many other times in his entire career where Gilchrist did that. And it's like, why have one of the most dynamic cricketers in the history of the game and use him in such a one-dimensional way? Like, they used him like he wasn't an all-rounder when he was an all-rounder.
Yeah, so the one test they do it is Shane Watson plays in 2005 versus Pakistan, where Gilchrist does bat at 6, but he only bats at once. But they win by 9 wickets, so we don't see him bat twice.
So that's a perfect example of, what year did you say that was?
That is Jan 2nd, 2005.
And what did you say they should have been doing that same time?
They're exactly that, right? Playing another all-rounder.
Right. I'm just going to have a look at Andrew McDonald as well. Let's see if I can just bring up his record here as well, because I think that's a fascinating one too, because you've got a situation with McDonald where I'm pretty sure, 2009. So it's obviously after Gilchrist. So he bats at 6. Yeah, so he bats at 6. So again, they're doing that thing of not moving their wicketkeeper at all, right? Now, I've watched McDonald and Haddon play a lot of cricket in my life. I would have thought that they were pretty even as batters, but you're bringing in McDonald, who isn't experienced, right, to bat at number 6, when the smarter option in that is to move Haddon up one spot, who's played a lot more. He's been playing, has been around the system for a little bit. Although, to be fair, Haddon might not have played a lot of cricket at that point either. So they're still showing, even when McDonald comes in, they're looking for the flexibility, but they're not actually using the flexibility of the wicketkeeper, right? The wicketkeeper cannot move, Varun, because they have decided that wicketkeepers bat at number 7. And this is what's fascinating about this is, traditionally, wicketkeepers did not bat at number 7. It's a new thing that doesn't even need to exist. There's no reason why he couldn't bat at number 5 like Andy Flower did, right? Like, I'm not saying you would use Gilchrist that way, but you could have. And at the same time, they're playing against England, and where does Matt Pryor bat?
6, right? Is it assumed?
Quite a lot at number 6. So they're seeing an opposition player do it, and they're not even.
What Pryor wasn't there in 05, was he?
No.
Or do you mean like late career? Like, do you mean like 2009 Australia?
Yeah. No, you're right. I suppose that's right. But they played against Alex Stewart, Andy Flower, I'm trying to think, Kumar Sangakkara. They played against lots of wicket keepers who batted higher up in the order.
I feel like India had a couple of keepers who opened for some reason. I don't know why.
Yes,
I don't know if it's
90s.
Regular.
I don't know if that worked particularly well, but
No.
yes.
That's the other side of going too rogue, I think.
Yeah, but this is my thing. I think Australia had one of the most dynamic weapons in the history of Test cricket, and they used him in one way, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, so I think it's a similar time period. I think you were talking about this in a similar note. Could India also done something similar, right? They had maybe like their best batters were probably like better than Australia's best batters, but maybe like the worst batter was worse than Australia's is the best way I would put it. At the very least, you had Sachin Dravid, Sehwag, Lakshman and Ganguly, right? So that's still like That's 3 all-time greats, I
Yeah.
think. One who's very close to being an all-time great, and one who's very good. Right? That's a very like good luxury to have. So you have 4 batters who somewhere like average somewhere between 45 and 55 in Test cricket, right? And then could they also not have compromised on the additional batting position for like another bowler? That's what you were saying, right?
Yeah, so I would love to know when those 5 players played in a test match at home, what their win percentage was, right? I'm assuming it was a lot of draws, not many wins, and a few losses in that period, right? And if that's the case, surely the option then is to take more wickets, right? So again, I don't know if you can do that with Ganguly away from home. I don't know. I'm talking about away from Asia anyway. But in Asia, I would have argued that with those 5 batters, I don't care who the other opening player, throw in Akash Chopra, Wasim Jaffer, Irfan Pathan. I don't care who it is, right? You're going to make a lot of runs with that side. And so the way to win test matches is by taking wickets. Can you not bring in someone else who is going to help you take more wickets and make sure that you have a genuine 4 or 5 bowlers that have the option of winning you the game, knowing that you're going to make runs more often than not with that lineup?
So I have the numbers for you. When all 5 played in India,
Yep.
they played 17 test matches together. They won 6 and lost 1 and drew 10.
So they weren't losing games. I would argue that under my system, they might lose more than 1, right?
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that the extra bowler doesn't help them win more games. And if you think about, I'm trying to think of when Venkatapati Raju's career kind of finishes.
I assume that would be the 2001 BGT, no?
So surely they had the option of picking, and there would be other spinners as well. I'm just using him as an example of, all right, I've now lost his career. Venkatapati Raju plays his last test match in 2001, right? But he plays his last first class game in 2004. So they've got 3 years of what I would say is Harbhajan, Kumble, and Venkatapati Raju. And I'm missing other spinners here, right? There would be other spinners, but that's a left arm finger spinner, a leg spinner, and an off spinner that they could have played in every single game if they are willing to be a little bit more flexible on the batting. All round, where they would argue back a little bit would probably be that they don't have maybe an Irfan Pathan type player, right? But I'm saying, is it worth actually not even being a good batting side at number 7, right? And knowing that you have Sachin and Sehwag and Dravid and Laxman in that side and Ganguly at home, knowing that you have an extra bowler that you could swing around more often than not. Now, we'd have to go, there's a bunch of uncles now that are really upset because they remember every single lineup from this period. They're like, they did do this. But the point being is, again, I think there is a lack of flexibility in the way they have thought about how they could have used that side because they had one of the greatest batting lineups of all time.
Yeah, so I think Irfan Pathan debuts in 2003 and he mainly bats at 8. So I think we were talking about this, right? So I guess the other counter argument would be prior 2005, the wicketkeeper just could not bat, right? So so if you have a wicketkeeper who averages like 25 to 30, I completely would get the argument that if you have a wicketkeeper batter who averages 25 to 30 and Irfan Pathan who might average 25 to 30, that might be too much. That might be compromising the batting way too much in that regard, right? But I think once Dhoni comes, you can make that argument.
Yeah, but if you're not winning the games already, would be my question, right? If you're if at home, if you're winning 6 out of 17 games, right? What you're doing is already not working.
So the other argument is we know for a fact India has historically been very conservative.
Yeah, there's no way
not losing. Not losing is more important than winning in that period.
In that period, not just for India, right? That was a thing for lots of teams. Like, I always find it funny, like when people are arguing against Parag Lara, they'll say things like, he was trying to draw games for his country, like by making these big scores. And I went, yeah, back then that was like seen as a respectable thing. It's now that we look at it going, what the hell? But back then that wasn't seen as like something that was crazy. Lots of players would try and do things like that, right? New Zealand had a whole tour where they went to England, where the plan was not to lose a test match and draw all 3 test matches. I'm pretty sure that if you look at the 1949 New Zealand side, I think they went into some of those games with 3 bowlers on purpose, because they were like, we don't care who bowls, because they're not going to bowl us out. That's how we're going to stick in this game. They are not going to bowl us out. So we have seen teams do that before. I think this is too revolutionary for the period that we're talking about. But if we are using today's logic, right, and saying, could you have done this? I think both of us now would be like, yeah, they probably could have done this on occasion, especially when they were playing teams that probably had weaker bowling lineups, right? If you've got a team coming over with a weak bowling lineup, I think you just say, I don't care if our number 6 and number 7 both average 25. It's going to take you a lot of effort to get through to that number 6 and number 7 with your bowling lineup, and this gives us extra ability to pick different bowlers and more weapons. Now, it does go against what we were saying before of maybe in Asia you don't need 5 bowling options, but it would have allowed for India maybe to have 2 seamers and 3 genuine frontline spinners in that period of time. And we'd have to go through. I'm sure there's another one I've
just to be clear, when we say we don't need, you might not need 5 bowling options in Asia, we mean on the turning pitches we're seeing in India, not the mega highways of the 2000s where you probably might need like 10 bowlers to get any wickets.
You might have needed
like what?
You might have needed 15 bowlers on some of those wickets.
Yeah,
right?
well, you might have needed like Glenn McGrath, Joe Garner at their primes.
Yeah.
Let's say Vaughan Murali and Imran Khan as the 5th bowler to take 20 wickets consistently. That's not the pitches where you you compromise on bowling.
No, exactly. That's a very, very good one. So if we look at if we look at 1998 to 1999, 1998 to 2011, I'll get that right. And we look at Indian bowlers, I'm just having a look at what kind of options that they could have.
So the third spinner, you had Murali Karthik for a while.
So there you go. I forgot about Murali Karthik. So there's that.
So he plays in the rank turner in Wankhede, where India win by like 13 runs or something.
So I don't think you can make any argument that is not an international quality bowler, right? So my point being is, you've got Prajin Ojha should have played more games. I know his action is a bit of a concern, but that's fine. Murali Karthik, Sunil Joshi, I don't remember as much. Venkatapati Raju is certainly someone, I don't think he plays that much. He might play 3 or 4. Ramesh Power is another one.
I do not remember Ramesh Power a bit at all.
I wonder if Laxman Shivaram.
Amit Mishra plays a few.
Amit Mishra is another one.
Lakshman Shivaram, he's like 70s, is he not?
No, he was around. No, he's 80s, wasn't he?
Was it 70s or 80s? It's definitely not in the 90s or 2000s.
I thought he was still around in the 90s in first class cricket, but I'd have to check. He might not have been by the late 90s anyway, so he probably doesn't qualify. Sunil Joshi was the all-rounder in white ball cricket. I don't remember his test record, so I'm just looking it up here. 15 test matches, 41 wickets at 35. First class cricket, 615 at 25. So he might have played. Yeah. So he could play more. He looks okay as a player. So they have options available there. And as I said, you want something slightly different to Kumble and Harbhajan. And I think, again, in what we've just said there, we've got some players who are slightly different. Like, do you know what I mean? You want complementary players. I think in that sort of one. Sivaram Krishnan finishes in first class cricket in 1998, so he just misses this, right? But I think it shows you that you can be more flexible and get more out. I think teams in the future will be more like that, right? Because I think now that we are much more flexible in the way that we think about cricket, and it's much more about winning games, and so you will see that. So I think if you had somehow you recreated that Indian side in modern cricket, I think you would risk the odd, right? Week number 7 or week number 6 to be able to do that if you have a freakish side. And I would argue that this Indian team was a freakish side. They should have been winning more matches than they were, and they weren't because they weren't maximising their ability to take wickets because of how much batting they had. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now. My latest book is The Art of Batting. It delves deep into how the best players ever made their runs. Get your copy today.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Yeah, so another point, like using the power of hindsight that we have is with the same Indian team. Do you think they missed an opportunity by not utilizing Virender Sehwag the same way the current Australian team are using Travis Head? Where you open with him in Asia, you open with him in Asia and you use him as a 5 or 6 in center, right? Let's say in center at that point you'd open with Dravid, you have one of Ganguly or VVS at 3. I'd probably have Ganguly at 3. I have Sachin at 4, Sehwag at 5, VVS 6, and whatever keeper, Dhoni, Partey Patel, Dinesh Karthik, I don't know. Someone random keeper there, right? Would they not have maximized everyone's batting mode at that point? Because I also think with Saurabh Ganguly, like to me, like we always talk about how some batters think like their position. I think he's one of those people. I'm like he thinks like his position in a way. Like even though I think we agree that VVS Lakshman is probably a number 4, I don't think he was batting at 6 thinking like he's a number 6. In a way, I think Ganguly does.
No, I think that's fair. I think you're right. I had never thought about this before, but England was a team that was much more flexible with their batting, whereas other teams weren't. The Travis Head one. But if you look back to even that period, I know that they ruined Moeen Ali, right? but Johnny Bairstow, Moeen Ali were moving around quite a bit based on conditions as much as anything else, right? The problem with them is they moved them everywhere and they moved them for no reason. But if you have a very strict reason and if you went to Sehwag and just said, look, this is why we want to do it. He does okay in Australia, obviously, but he averages about 26, 27 combined against the moving ball in England, South Africa.
Checking. So as an opener, he averages 28 in England, 19 in New Zealand, and 18 in South Africa. Right. And 47 in Australia.
So, and Australia doesn't have lateral movement, right? So anywhere where there's lateral movement, he can't play. So you say to him, why don't you just come in at number 5? I think that's a really good way of doing it. And again, that's maximizing your talent rather than just saying that you need to. And then you bring in Wasim Jaffer and Akash Chopra and Abhinav Mukund.
Gautam Gambhir after a while.
Yeah, Gautam Gambhir, whoever, right? Mm-hmm. You bring in those players and you say to them, that's your job. Your job is to, nullify the ball so that the better players can come in later. That's all we want you to do. I like it. I really like that idea. I think in general, we use bowlers as specialists and we don't use batters as specialists for conditions.
Don't get me started on that, Jarrod. You know how I feel about that.
So I think if you and I did that, I think we could go through an entire, like Doug Walters. How many Test matches does Doug Walters play in Australia? I reckon. In England. I reckon Doug Walters plays like 15 or 20 Test matches in England. Like they just keep sending him back, right? And Doug Walters, fantastic cricketer, right? Clearly could not make runs in England. Like this. You don't need to be a master analyst to look at it and go, he played 18 Test matches in England and averaged 25, right? 18 Test matches and he didn't make 100. And Doug Walters is not as good away from home as he is in Australia, but there are places where he does make runs. Like he makes 200s against the West Indies. He makes runs in New Zealand a little bit as well. He's okay in India. Like it's just England where he is absolutely pointless in picking him. Why did they keep taking him? That's 4 Ashes tours, I'm assuming, that he went on, right? What are you thinking? After the first 3, right, what are you thinking is going to happen on the 4th one? And we've seen this over and over again, right, of teams doing this. And so if that was a bowler, you would not have taken Dougie Walters for that 4th tour. We both know that.
Yes.
So I think there are certain situations where you just know something about a player, and it's worth moving on a little bit, right? I think the problem with specialists is, and having talked to players, they don't like being thought of as specialists, right? Like I think it was Stuart Meeker when he got picked to bowl in Asian conditions, and he was told by England, "You're like an Asian seamer for us. That's why we're picking you." And he's like, great, thank you. I'm very happy to be picked. He goes, but you do realize I've been bowling in England and taking all these wickets in my career, right? Like I can also bowl in England. And so, yeah, you definitely have a situation there where that's the case. But yeah, I think that's a very good one with Sehwag. And, and with Dougie Walters, take him over as the team mascot if you need him.
So I think with Sehwag, I think there's one Test match where they tried for 1 innings and under the Greg Chappell era, right? I was like, So again, with Greg Chappell, I think we see the point. He has very good ideas, but he always executes them horribly. So he bats at 7 in South Africa in the first innings, where Dinesh Karthik and Wasim Jaffer open the batting. He makes 40 or 50 balls. In the second innings, they immediately open. Where I think the reason they open with him is because South Africa bat for about 130 overs, and Dinesh Karthik, he bats for 170 balls in the first innings, and then keeps for about 128 overs. So he might be too tired to open the batting. So they were onto something where they fucked up was having the keeper open the batting. So I think if the keeper was at 7, let's say if DK was at 7 and they had Dravid and Wasim Jaffer opening and you move everyone up 1, let's say, Ganguly at 3, I think they were onto something, Jarrod. I think I'm just sad we don't see it more often.
Here's another one for you. I don't know why this is so India-centric, despite the fact that we actually have 2 other stories that are not India coming up.
That's true.
But the India one's quite interesting surely, of all the teams in the history of cricket, Rahul Dravid and Sachin Tendulkar should have moved batting positions more than they did. Rahul Dravid, absolutely made to be an opening batter and could have opened the batting and not even blinked an eye. And Sachin Tendulkar could have batted at 3. Surely there are games and situations where those two should have changed their positions in the order for things like Sehwag, right? For things like an extra bowler to be able to do that they just didn't do, Varun. It was like, he's a 3 and he's a 4. It's like, okay, we get that. But again, like that lack of flexibility really doesn't help you as a side, right? Like
I'll actually defend Arman Dravid here. I think there are times he does open. Sachin just doesn't move.
He does. Don't get me wrong. I'm not having a go at Sachin or Dravid.
I'm definitely having a go at Sachin.
Yeah, but I mean, it might have been Sachin. But my point being is, again, this comes back to the Warren McGrath thing of like, yeah, I get it, they were great, but if you could help them more, or you could use their flexibility more, then you're a better side. So why not do it that way, right? It's like the Kumar Sangakkara thing of like, occasionally he's just going to have to take the gloves. We're not saying that Sachin was going to bat at 3 very often, but there are certain games where you need an extra bowler or you need to change your batting order that it would have made more sense. There's nothing in Sachin's game that says he couldn't have made runs at number 3.
Yeah, for some reason,
nothing within his
they
game.
move him from opening to number 4 in ODI cricket, but they never thought the inverse in Test cricket.
Yeah,
it's like that's what I'm confused about. I'm like, the position, that's a format where you shouldn't absolutely not have done that, they did, and the format where it made sense to do that, they never did it, right? So I think we had great discussion about that. Let's just move to like a slightly earlier era, right? South Africa and I guess the all-round deception that they had, where I feel like everyone was an all-rounder in that team, especially if you count the keepers too. They probably fucked up a bit by using Klusner as a frontline bowler. I think same as Simons. It's like no one loves Klusner more than both of us, Jarrod, especially in ODI cricket. I think we both think as good as he was, I think many people agree is great. He's still underrated in ODI cricket. It's like, but what the hell was he doing as bowling as your frontline bowler in Test cricket?
Yeah, I saw him bowl quite a bit in Test cricket live, and we used to laugh as Australian fans because we were just like, what do they think they're doing with him? Like he would have been a really good 5th bowler, and I suppose their thinking was that there's something about the fact that him and Callis combined were like a joint 4th bowler at times. Does that make sense? Because you have both
let's have
of them.
Brian McMillan too. I think in that mix.
Yeah, I don't think I know you said they played a couple of Test matches together, but I think McMillan might not have been bowling as much by that point in his career anyway. But there was this idea that they could. This was the whole thing with Bob Woolmer's. Bob Woolmer's a genius, right? I've said this before. His book is the most important book in the history of cricket. You know, it's him and C.L.R. James. Those are the 2 books, one about playing cricket and one about what cricket means, are the 2 most influential books of all time. But Bob Woolmer had this theory that you could just put players on top of other players and the cumulative total would get better. Whereas, like, so you have Lance Klusner, who averages 30 in first-class cricket with the ball, and I'm assuming Jacques Kallis, who averages 30 in first-class cricket with the ball. I'm just guessing that off the top of my head, right? In Test match cricket, do you know what you have? 2 guys who average 32 to 33, who both bowl right arm seam. What's the advantage that you get here, right? They both want to bowl with a newish ball. They both want to bowl at the same time. They're different kinds of bowlers. Like, so you could certainly say that Klusner was maybe more of a seamer and Kallis was more of a swing bowler. But when you combine them together, Varun, you don't suddenly get a 26 average bowler. Right? Whereas what you and I are saying is, if Klusner bats at 6, this is the lineup I want to go with. Callis is in at 4, right? We have Klusner at 6, we have Boucher at 7, and Pollock at 8. I would switch that around, and I would have had Pollock at 7, and I'd have Boucher at 8, just because I think that Pollock was a better batter than Boucher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have the ability to have 3 specialist bowlers beyond them, right? So behind Pollock or behind Boucher at 9, 10, and 11, I still have the ability to pick the 3 best bowlers in the country. So let's say it was Donald, let's say it was Paul Adams or Pat Simcox.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it
Fanny
was
de Villiers.
Fanny de Villiers, would have been Steve Elworthy for a little while. It would have been Intini, whoever that bowler is. I now have 3 frontline bowlers who are in the side just to bowl. I have Pollock, so I have 4 frontline bowlers. So I'm not losing anything there. And I still have Klusner and Callis in the side. And what was Klusner's test batting average? Batting at number... what was his test batting average? Do you know?
I don't know. Is it under 30, I imagine?
It was 33, right?
Okay, that's not bad.
What was his first-class batting average, though? It was 43. Because in first-class cricket, he's playing as a batter. And in Test cricket, he's playing as a bowler. I would argue Sean Pollock's batting average would have been higher if he batted at 7 or 6 as well, because they would have batted more like those sorts of players. Now, in our plan, we still have 4 frontline bowlers, right? With 2 other all-rounders who can chip in. You now have 4 frontline bowlers and 6 bowling at lineup, and you're still batting to number 8. And instead, as you said, when you have Klusner in at number 8, what you actually have is 3 frontline bowlers, and then 2 all-rounders or 3 all-rounders when McMillan played, who are all fine, but they're all right-arm seam all-rounders that do basically similar kinds of jobs that don't actually add up to a 4th seamer or a 4th frontline bowler. So I don't see what the point of this lineup was. I think Bob Bulmer just got his sums wrong. And I get it, because they'd taken a big chance on Klusner, remember. And remember that as much as you and I love him, they didn't even use him as a frontline a batter in ODI cricket, where he's one of the greatest batters of all time.
They used him like Faulkner in ODI cricket, Jarrod.
It's ridiculous.
Think about it.
So in one day cricket, he ended up in, this is so ridiculous to say this number out loud. He ends up averaging 41 in ODI cricket, right? And yet he bats at number 8 and number 9 at times after he's a star. Like, it's not even it's not even as if they change it around. Like, he bats at number 8 more than he bats at number 6, which
And
makes
comes behind.
no
Does it
sense.
come behind Sean Pollock and Boucher in the semi-final?
He does become behind Sean Pollock and Boucher in the semi-final, which, as long as I live, I will never understand the thing there. He bats at number 9 12 times in ODI cricket for no reason at all. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. He averaged 41. They didn't have top order players who could average 41 in his era. What does Jonty Rhodes average? 36? Why is he batting behind Jonty Rhodes, Varun? I reckon. I know we're doing this now. I'm sorry. You've taken me there. I'm going to have to do this. What I said, he averaged 43 in first class cricket. Lance Klusner, right?
I assume that 43 is with the test average bringing it down too, right?
Yeah.
So let's say 45, 46 without the test cricket.
But no. Let's leave test cricket in for a minute. Jonty Rhodes averaged 41 in first class cricket. I watched both of them play. Jonty Rhodes had a much better technique, like a more technically correct player. I never looked at Jonty Rhodes and thought he was a better bat than Lance Klusner in my entire life. Not a single time I've watched, and I was watching them play over and over again, right? And so they never. So what's the point in Lance Klusner coming lower down the order when the guys above him are averaging roughly the same? Right? It just doesn't make any sense. So I think Bob Woolmer, he had this thing of, as I said, he wanted as many bowling options as possible and a batting order that went as low as possible. Whereas I actually think what they should have done with Klusener is they should have meant that they had 4 frontline Klusener allows for 4 frontline bowlers and batting to number 8, right? And I think that's a hard team to beat, isn't it? If you have 4 frontline bowlers batting to number 8 and 2 really, or sometimes 3 really decent seam options available to you as well as your 5th, 6th, and 7th options, that team is so much better than the actual team that South Africa was using.
I think the only reason they get away with it is because you had Sean Pollock and Alan Donald at the absolute peaks.
But
so it's like
away with it, but they didn't beat Australia.
They didn't beat Australia.
Don't you think our team, and look, this is with hindsight and everything, we know what sort of a player Klusener becomes. They still had in their mind, and Klusener's part of the problem here, that he wasn't a batter, right? They still have that thing that he's not a real batter, right? But I think our team is more likely to beat the Australian team, as the Australian team was assembled, not our version of the Australian team. I think our South African team is more likely to beat Australia because that was one thing that Australia always knew, that if they had to go up against Callis and Klusener as that 4th bowler, like, look at the Australian 4th bowlers of that era, right? Even when they had injuries and everything, it's like Paul Rifle, it's Damien Fleming, it's Brett Lee, it's Colin Miller. Like, all of those bowlers are so much better at bowling than Lance Klusener is, right? So much better at bowling than Lance Klusener. And it wasn't that he wasn't a handy bowler. I don't think either of us are going to say he couldn't bowl at all. But he was kind of conditions based. You know, he takes 80 wickets in 49 matches. That's very much 5th bowler. So why is he batting at number 8?
Oh yeah, so actually, like, now that you mentioned Australia, I forgot to ask you this. Speaking of missed opportunities, is there a missed opportunity that with that Australian team, Brett Lee should have taken the new ball and one of Glenn McGrath or Jason Gillespie should have been first change? Could they have maximized that even more?
It couldn't be Glenn McGrath because he's the greatest new ball bowler in...
I'm not saying. I think could McGrath have done a similar thing to what Cummins has done, where he could be elite, but he's like, let's say it's 10% worse. But
did you ever check the 1999 World Cup when he bowled first change?
That's right, but I think Test cricket would be slightly different, no?
Yeah, I don't think you move the great. I think there's an argument to be made that he's the greatest new ball bowler in the history of cricket.
I agree.
Right.
Completely
So
agree.
I don't think you move him.
Let's say we're busy.
Gillespie is much more interesting, right? Because Gillespie is more of a seam bowler and Brett Lee's more of a swing bowler. So doesn't it make more sense for the swing bowler to take the new ball? I just think that by that I don't think they ever really fully committed to Brett Lee as that kind of a bowler is maybe the way, the thing with Brett Lee was he didn't really mature as a bowler in Test cricket until the other guys were gone. And maybe some of that is just that when he got the new ball, it's just that's when he became that bowler.
Brett Lee's Test career is so stupid, by the way. I think when he starts, he has like 42 wickets in 7 matches. He's very ordinary for a while. And then there's a period where he takes like 55 wickets in 9 games. He's a weird bowler. So let's just move on from that. I think that was just a quick what-if situation.
I think you're right. I reckon that it'd be interesting to know why that never happened.
That's fair. Maybe Dizzy just didn't want to move, or Brett Lee just... I don't know. Like that team was so good that they could make some tactical blunders and still get away with it. Because just the quality was so good, right?
As the New Zealanders always say, Australia is quite often the best team and still one of the dumbest.
It makes sense. The more I look into them, the more I agree with the statement, right? So you wanted to talk about Rangana Herath not being bowled more often with Murli. Yes. I honestly, I've done no research on this, so I'll go for it.
So I think the general thought is that Herath comes in and isn't ready when he plays Test cricket originally, and he floats in and out of the side and everything else, right? And his Test record is not particularly good when he's young. I think that's fair. I've got 2 laptops open at the moment. So if I'm looking over weirdly, it's because I'm looking over at the second one. So can you just look at this up for me? When did Murali's last year is 2010, 2011, somewhere around there?
Is it not 8? Or am I misremembering?
Oh, it might be 8. It might be 8. I know it's in that sort of period, but so Rangana Herath plays 2 Test matches in 1999, 1 in 2000.
Sorry, so you were at 2010 for Murli. Yeah, I don't know why I thought it was 8.
Yeah. So he plays 2 in 99, 1 in 2000, 4 in 2004, 5 in 2005, 2 in 2008, 7 in 2009. So they have 1 year where Harvey is used as the second frontline bowler with him, right? But Murali's almost cooked by that. Not cooked, but you know he's not the Murali he was before. Up until that point, they have 10 years, right, where they could have used Harvey as just the second spinner. They're two finger spinners, but they spin it in two different ways. There's no reason why you can't play both of them all the way through all those games. And when you go and have a look at his first class record, right, he doesn't average in Sri Lanka. He doesn't average more than 30 in a first class season, right? He has 1 year where it is, where are we here? I think it's just in 2004 and 2005. He doesn't play. He only takes 5 wickets. I'm going to assume he was injured and he averages 35 that year, right? But everywhere else, he's taking. Can I give you some of his years, right?
Go for it.
Just to show that this is ridiculous. In 98-99, he gets picked for 2 games, as we said. He takes 48 wickets at 17. Right? In 1999, no, sorry, that's the wrong year. In 99-2000, he takes 30 wickets at 18. In 2000 and 2001, he takes 72 wickets at 14, right?
Oof.
In the following summer, he takes 51 wickets at 24. In 2002 to 2003, he takes 38 wickets at 19. The next year, 34 wickets at 27. I'm just trying to see if he has a bad year anywhere. No, those are when he's on tour. Then he comes back to Sri Lanka. He's injured, so we're not too worried about that. He's injured a little bit in the middle here. 05-06, 35 wickets at 21. 06-07, 45 wickets at 18. What am I missing here? What am I missing looking at these numbers? They obviously think he's international quality because they have played him occasionally. How is he just not their second spinner the entire time from 1999 until Murali retires?
Yeah, unless I'm misreading this, like they don't really have a second spinner in that period.
That's my point. He's not even... There isn't
Sana
another
Jayasuriya
player.
has the second most bowled overs along with Murali in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
When put in games Murali has played. So Dharmasena plays for 17 test matches, which I think he was probably like before Herat's time, so I think we can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Herat only plays 10 test matches, right? Yeah.
So let's have a look. If we go, I can bring this up here too. So from what did we say? The end of 2010, let's say, right? So, 01 January 2010. If we look at just Sri Lanka,
Do you know who Niroshan Bandaratilike is?
it's not a name that. Did he do good?
Yeah. So he plays seventh. Sorry, wait. Who am I looking at? So he plays 6 matches, takes 20 wickets at an average of 27. I think that's 98 to 2001. Might be before Herat.
And
Mendes plays 4 test matches with Murali. Yeah, he's a SLA.
So they're just not picking. They're just not picking spinners because we're going on with Harvey, and it's a bit like what we were saying with India before. Like I was picking the spinners that have made it to international level that we are aware of, right? But there isn't. The other argument there is that it's hard to think that Sri Lanka and India aren't producing 2 or 3 international quality spinners fairly regularly. Not all the time, but fairly regularly. So I've just brought up all the spinners here. From 1998 to 2009, Murali takes 652 wickets at 21. Just wanted to say that for fun. Harvey plays 21 matches in that period, and he takes 70 wickets at 37. You have Mendes comes in, takes 44 wickets at 29. Chandana takes 37 wickets at 41. Dharmasena takes 27 wickets at 45. And the guy that you said before, Bandratilake, is it? I can't read it.
Bandaratilike.
Bandratilake takes 23 wickets at 30. So even if you say, okay, Harath, when he came in, didn't take as many test wickets as he wanted, I would still argue that you keep trying him because he's absolutely ridiculous. But let's say it is Bandra Tilake, right? Nirashon, Bandra Tilake. So let's have a look at his first-class record. 177 matches, 573 wickets at 21.
Solid choice.
So, again, they have people available. He plays his last first-class game in 2009.
Oh, God, that's much longer than I thought.
So they are just not picking a second spinner for generations. For the whole generation. So it doesn't matter if you want Harath in or not. I think you can justify he should have got more opportunities. But they might say, look, we picked him and he didn't take a lot of wickets. But they have another guy here who comes in and plays 7 test matches and takes wickets and just disappears. How are they not playing 2 and 3 spinners consistently at home?
So, yeah, just a second. Murli plays in 73 home games. They win 37, lose 14, and draw 22, which is very impressive considering how the hell do you draw that many tests with Murli? So it's like, it's almost like, surely that should be like impossible to do, right?
What's the bowling averages? Like, who are the... So, obviously, Vast plays. So, Chaminder's going to take, 30 overs a game, even at home, I would have assumed, right? I'm just looking at our man, Bandara Tilake here. He played 1 test match in Pakistan and he took 3 wickets, an average of 48. So, that doesn't tell us much. He played 6 test matches at home and he took 20 wickets at 27.
Yeah. That's he plays all 6 with Murli.
So why is he just not playing? What am I missing?
Nothing about this.
This doesn't make any sense, does it?
So Murli averages 19.56 at home. So the next best for like a decent sample size would be Vas, who averages under 26 at home alongside Murli. Arman Dilara Fernanda averages 26.75.
Yep.
Guru Sinha averages 30. So I think he only takes 5 wickets in 10 tests. I think that's... And then you have Aravinda. Lasith Maling averages 32 in 15 test matches. Okay.
So
and then,
just from what
then
you
go to Sanath, and then it just goes a bit rogue after that.
It sounds like they're using Fernando, Vas, and Malinga as... So that sounds like to me they were using multiple seam options, but not multiple spin options.
I think knowing how the teams in the 2000s work, I bet they thought Sanath Jayasuriya is a very good second spinner. Like Aman Behram.
Was Sanath Jayasuriya a very good second spinner? What was his bowling average in Sri Lanka in that period?
Alongside Murli's 34.72.
And so they've got 2 left-arm finger spinners. One who's gone on to be a great of the game, and another one who in 6 matches takes 20 wickets at 27. You can't tell me that they couldn't have used them and Sanath. Yeah. Right? And also, for some of that time, you could have, if Sanath wasn't bowling, Aravinda could have bowled. What was his record in those games?
Who are we talking about, sorry?
Aravinda De Silva.
Aravinda, he took 14 wickets in 32 test matches at 31.
So if you pick another specialist left-arm finger spinner, do you not just give Aravinda the ball a little bit more as your backup off spinner, and him and Sanath bowl as the backup, the joint third bowler?
I think Sanath as third spinner, I can see the argument, especially, but that would be an upgrade over like a Sehwag or something. Third spinner, really I think is fair. Yeah. I think I'd take him as third spinner. Second is like pushing it though, isn't it? Like that's crazy. That's lunacy at that point. I don't even know. Like it's weird. Like when you look back at some teams, it's like maybe a lot of those teams were a bit overrated because I feel like surely if you have better bowling plans, you'd exploit the fuck out of that, right? Like I think if you have better analysts, you'd be like, just make sure Murli doesn't get a wicket at all. Go at like 0 runs per over against him, and we'll take everyone else down, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's quite fascinating. So yeah, so those are the teams that came to mind. If anyone has more.
No, we forgot one. There's one. I think to finish it off. It's Don Bradman and the specialist bowlers theory.
Oh, we did forget that one.
We did leave the best for last. So I think just to give a context, so we were discussing in the group, I was like, best cricketers. I think I'm of the opinion that none of the batters are good cricketers because they're useless, Right? So Jared's like, well, Don Bradman is a very good cricketer because Australia had him. Australia could, let's say, play like some dodgy all-rounders, like a wicketkeeper who couldn't bat because Bradman was making so many runs, and that led into the thinking: if you have a guy who is averaging 100, which is basically almost like two players averaging 50, that's two elite batters in one. Would you not make an argument that you could have had even like a shit keeper at 6 and 5 genuine bowlers, right? Especially because we're assuming Keith Miller doesn't overlap a lot with the Don. Like, obviously, when you have Keith Miller, you play him Keith Miller as the fifth bowler. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, like, they play Keith Miller in a really weird role anyway. Like, he bats at 5 when I would have said he probably should have come in lower. So here's the big one, right? They don't have a lot of bowling options in the 1930s, Australia. They're not a great bowling lineup, but they do have the world's two best bowlers, which is Bill O'Reilly and Clary Grimmett, right? So maybe their thinking is that those guys are going to bowl like 80% of our overs, and we don't need that many other options. But outside of the team, Varun, is a guy called Chuck Fleetwood Smith. Chuck Fleetwood Smith takes 597 first-class wickets at 22, and he's a left-arm wrist spinner. So it would have meant that they'd have a left-arm wrist spinner, a right-arm wrist spinner, and two right-arm wrist spinners in the side, right? And the two right-arm wrist spinners are very different to each other as well. They could have easily played Chuck for a lot more. He only played 10 test matches in that period. I don't know if they had extra seamers, but I think you're right. I think that is a perfect example of, if you have Bradman in the side, I think you can completely change your structure. And maybe you play, I'm trying to think of some of the players.
So I was just checking. So Keith Miller
Sam
and
Loxton.
Don Bradman play 15 test matches together. So I was just checking it.
Who was that, sorry?
Keith Miller and the Don play 15 test matches together. So it must be like, so about a third of his career then, right?
That would have been mostly after World War II, wouldn't it? Did Keith Miller play any?
46 to 48.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another all-rounder I can give you here. There's a guy called Sam Loxton. Sam Loxton plays 12 test matches. He averages 36 with the bat, and he didn't take many wickets in test cricket. He only took 8 wickets at 43. But in first-class cricket, Sam Loxton takes 200 wickets at 25, right? I'd say still a fifth bowling option. You bat him at 6 because he can bat, right? You bat the wicketkeeper who can't bat at all at 7. And then you pick Chuck Fleetwood Smith in as your extra bowler. And Bradman basically overcomes the wicketkeeper and Sam Loxton on his own.
Yes. I think that's fair.
I don't know where Sam Loxton batted for Australia. I reckon he bats at 7 and 8. But I think he's probably better than that. Let's have a look. He bats at 6. So he could bat at 6. So you bat him at 6, which is his normal position. You bat the shit wicketkeeper at 7, who's averaging about 20, right? And then you have the ability to do that. There's probably another all-rounder, I reckon, that they could have picked. Is it Laurie Nash? Laurie Nash was basically kicked out of cricket because he was too nuts, and went on to play Aussie rules football instead. Laurie Nash plays 2 test matches. He averages 28 with the bat and 28 with the ball in first-class cricket. So you could have played Laurie Nash at number 7 and had the wicketkeeper at number 8. But they were obviously not going to pick Nash because they thought he was a wild man. But so that means with him and Loxton, you did have the ability to be a little bit more flexible. There's probably another all-rounder as well. I think the other all-rounder is a guy called Colin McCool, one of my favourite names in cricket. But the problem with Colin McCool is, I'm not sure what era he plays in, but I think Colin McCool is another leg spinner. Yeah, he is. So now in that team, you would have 3 leg spinners. So I don't think you can play Colin McCool in that number 8 role, number 7 role as well. But it does show you that they had flexibility again. So if you had Bradman now, right, and you have a decent batting, because it's not Bradman on his own, right? You've got McCabe, you've got Ponsford, you've got Morris, you've got Harvey, all those different guys around them, right? Bill Brown. If you had a good, solid batting lineup now, and one of them is Bradman, do you think that's what a team does? And they're willing to be a little bit more flexible to get the fifth bowling. You basically play Bradman as your all-rounder, right? And then you just go, well, number 7 doesn't matter to us because you're not going to get past Bradman anyway.
Yeah, let's say assuming in the modern keeper would average 35 to 40 with the bat, right? And
Yeah.
like, let's say, I think that do you know who Woodfull is?
Yeah, he's another great.
Sorry, Oldfield is the one I'm thinking of. He's the wicket keeper in that period.
Yeah, Oldfield,
average
what does he average with the bat? 17?
18.94.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say
It's
like a
not great.
if you have the Don now and you have a modern keeper average 35,
Yeah.
argument's sake, let's say you have him at 6. Yeah, you definitely could play 5 frontline bowlers, could you not?
Yeah. I think you could still do it because they had Loxton. I think you can play Loxton. You just play out Loxton higher, right? You bat him at 6, and then you have your weak number 7 where he averages 20, right? So what's a number 7 now in world cricket averages about 32, 33, right?
Yeah. Roughly, I'd
if
imagine.
So if you've got Loxton averaging 36, and you've got your number 7 averaging 20, right? And Bradman is averaging 50 more than everyone else. You're still got your runs, and now you have your genuine fifth bowler in the lineup. So I think you could do it back then. I think now it's a no-brainer. If you have Bradman, you just use Bradman as the extra batting on his own.
So let's say if the current Australian team had Bradman, what would your lineup be?
Well, I don't know if you change it with your current Australian team because he'd have to overcome so many other holes. Doesn't it have to be a team that's more normal with the bat?
Let's go India then. Sure, I'll give you India. Let's go. Let's
Is
say
India
Bradman
too
was
good?
Is
Is
I don't
England
know.
the
Is
team?
India? Oh, England's a fair shout actually.
Okay.
Let's say
So-
let's do England finally. Let's settle on England.
So we bring Bradman in for Pope.
I'll give you a really shitty. What would Bradman do in the West Indies side, Jarrod?
If Bradman was in the West Indies side, they'd still be almost as shit. That's how bad they are with the bat. Okay, so if he comes in for Pope, right? Mm-hmm. You then have Root, Brook, Stokes, Smith, right? So can you use one of those other guys up the order?
Okay.
So I don't know. The problem is who opens?
So let's say you drop Pope and Crawley and you ask the Don to open. I don't know if he would.
I was
but
about
let's
to
you
say
do.
the same thing. I think you get Bradman to open, don't you, in that side?
Yeah.
So you get Bradman to open.
But then Root won't bat at 3. So
And then you bring in the extra. So you've got Smith at 6,
okay.
right? Do you use Curran at 7? Or do you bring in a
Curran?
genuine specialist? Do you have Cast at 7 or someone like that at 7?
Yeah, you could do.
Or
I
Liam
wonder
Dawson?
if
Do you have
Stokes
Liam
having
Dawson
Stokes.
at 7?
Liam Dawson's a good shot, yeah.
You have Liam Dawson at 7, right? And then
Okay.
and then
Or
you
Han
just
Ahmed,
pick-
one of those lot.
Yeah, one of those two guys. That's a good one
Yeah.
as well. And then you just have 4 frontline bowlers behind them.
I wonder if Stokes just ruins this question because he just gives you a decent fifth bowling option. I think this would be a very interesting question if Stokes was injured.
Yeah. It's better without Stokes, you're right. So maybe South Africa's the best one. So you've got Aiden Markram opening with
Rickleton.
Rickleton, okay. So you got Bradman at 3, which
Right.
ahead of Vian Mulder, the other Bradman, right? Which means you move Vian Mulder to 7 and Marco Janssen at 8, and you still have 4 frontline bowlers and Vian Mulder.
So in the current team, South Africa dropped Mulder for a bowler, Muthuswamy anyway, right? If you have Bradman at 3 instead of, let's say, Stubbs, you could
Yeah.
still continue doing that without any change in the batting.
Yeah, and your batting's 50
Even
runs
much better. Like much better. Maybe 70, I'd argue. But yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes it. That gives you. Yeah, you're right. Stokes does ruin it a little bit. So you could definitely. He basically gives you. So if it's India, well, let's go back to the India stuff. So he bats at 3 ahead of Sai Sudarshan. So that's
Easy.
fine,
Yeah.
right? That means that they can pick Kuldeep in every game.
They won't, but they could.
Yeah, but you do, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You could, yeah.
Like you and I, isn't that what we would do? We would have Jadeja at
Yeah.
7, and whatever. Who cares who bats at number 8? We don't care if they don't bat at all because Bradman is such
What
a
would you
big
do?
boom.
Let's say you
And the
have
rest of the batters
Jadeja
together.
6 and Washington Sundar and Nitish at 7. You'd have Kuldeep at 8 and 3 seamers, right? That's what you do if you had Bradman
Yep.
at 3. You don't need the batting at 8. That's the thing, though. Like, I think, as you said, I think India might be slightly too flexible to already do this. So
But the
who would be
biggest
a-
problem
I'm-
is he is right-handed, so maybe Gambier doesn't pick him.
That's very true, Jarrod. Yeah, that's very true. That's very
Can't
true.
have two
Alright.
right-handers next to each other. All right, I think we're
Definitely.
done.
I think
we
we're
did
done.
say we had no idea if this would be a 20-minute podcast or an hour
Indeed.
podcast, and we went well beyond an hour.
Yeah, I think as I said, I think we was like, it's either we finish everything in 35 minutes or we spend like 15 minutes on one topic, and that's we were closer to the latter than the former, let's just say. Alright, so as Jarrod was saying, let us know if there's other missed opportunities you think of, and if we find
Let
another
us
one,
know
we'll do a
if-
part
if
two.
we have- let us know if there are missed opportunities.
Yeah, is there if we find enough missed opportunities, we'll do a part two, Jarrod. How about that?
There must be, by the way, just to whisper this, there must be ones with Imran Khan and Pakistan, and there must be ones with Sobers and West Indies. There must be. That we just didn't think about, but I reckon there would be. Both of them as well? Anyway, sorry.
All right. So thank you so much, guys. I think we'll see you in the next one. Subscribe to goodareas.co. It's got everything with us. We'll see you in the next time. Bye.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.